Hello and welcome. This is Angie Holden, and I'm the blogger behind The Country Chic Cottage. So today we're going to talk about protective paper, or what's sometimes referred to as blowout paper, for sublimation crafting. So I get questions just about every day about what paper works, why I use a certain type of paper, and questions on what paper is best to use for sublimation. So let's talk about what blowout paper is first of all. So a blowout paper is used on top of your sublimation print, and in the case of fabric, I always put it underneath, or like a shirt in between the layers of the shirt. So it's used to catch excess ink. You don't want any of that sublimation ink, once it gets heated and activated, to get onto your heat press or any other surfaces. So you need blowout paper to catch that ink. So I always recommend blowout paper whenever you're doing sublimation crafts, whatever sublimation craft you're doing. I always recommend to add at least one sheet on top of your sublimation print, and in the case of fabric, one sheet underneath whatever you're sublimating on. And that also includes, like if I was sublimating on a metal plate, I would put a piece of blowout paper underneath it and on top of it, so that any blowout from my sublimation print will go onto that bottom sublimation blowout paper as well, if that makes sense. Now something like a tumbler, you wouldn't necessarily have anything underneath because there really isn't an underneath area in the case of like a tumbler or a mug. Now, then we know what blowout paper is. What do you use for protective paper? So I've got 3 options for you that I recommend, and then I'm going to talk about the things I don't recommend and why. So let's talk about what protective paper or blowout paper should be. It should be white. It should be able to release moisture and not hold that moisture in. And that means it should be uncoated. So here are a few options for your sublimation printing. And I'm going to go from my favorite down to like my option that I use when I'm in a bind. So my favorite is the Artist Spree protective paper. And I'm going to link to all of these in the description below. If you are watching on computer, then click show more. If you're watching on mobile, you might have to like swipe up, or sometimes there's an arrow to expand. So Artist Spree protective paper is intended for sublimation. So it's specifically made for your sublimation crafts, which is the reason I like it. And this protective paper, they do say you can reuse it if no ink gets on it. So if I use it, no ink blows out of my sublimation print, then I just stick it into, I have like a sublimation cart. I stick it on that cart, I use it again the next time. If ink gets on it, you can cut away the ink spots. You can throw the whole thing away. You can recycle it. You could use it for I like to use my extra blowout paper under kids crafts because it makes a great protective sheet under them as well. Because once that ink gets on it, it's not going anywhere unless you heat it again. So you don't want to use it on any crafts where it would be heated again, would be the key there. So that's my favorite. Next up is butcher paper. And it is important that you get an uncoated butcher paper. I like to order this big roll on Amazon, and then I have a roll holder in my craft room, and I stick the roll on, and this roll's almost gone, and then I just pull some off. You can also get like huge rolls at Sam's Club, places like that, for a really inexpensive price. So it is inexpensive per sheet. What I would caution you to do is get the uncoated version, because like we talked about, we want it to be able to like absorb that moisture and release it, not hold that moisture in. Now what if I don't have either of those? So I haven't ordered the Artist Spree protective paper yet, and my butcher paper hasn't come in or something. I really want to make this sublimation project. I'm in a pinch, I'm in a bind. What do? Regular copy paper. Now, copy paper is only 8.5 by 11, or mine is, but a super cheap copy paper will work as blowout paper in a pinch. However, you might have to use multiple sheets to cover your full project. So it could get a little pricey, especially if you're using multiple sheets, but it does work definitely in a pinch, and it's something that probably everyone has on hand. So in a pinch, grab copy paper. Now, I said those are my 3 favorites. So what do you not use as blowout paper? So the first thing you're not going to use is parchment paper. I get this question all the time. Parchment paper definitely has a place in your craft room for HTV crafts and like layering HTV, it's great protection over that. However, it's coated, it holds in that moisture, it doesn't release it out. It is not recommended for sublimation crafting. The second thing that's not recommended for sublimation crafting is Teflon sheets. Again, Teflon sheets are amazing for all those HTV crafts, layering. I love my Teflon sheet. However, you do not want to use that for sublimation crafts. So save that for those HTV crafts and pick up protected paper, butcher paper, or in a pinch use copy paper for blowout paper when it comes to sublimation. So now that you know what to use, it's time to stock your craft room. So stock your craft room with one of the options that I've mentioned. And then I find it tons easier. Like, I know the copy paper is going to be something easy and you're just going to grab that. However, these papers on a roll are much easier to get, especially for those larger sublimation designs. Like, you would use 4 sheets of these probably on some large sublimation designs for shirts. So I like to use the rolls so I can be sure there's plenty to cover my entire heat press. So I do use blowout paper, especially on the top, like if I'm making a shirt that covers my entire heat press platen. So the entire heated plate at the top, I want to cover that entire thing with blowout paper when I'm pressing down. Same for the bottom. I usually cover the entire bottom. So the last thing you want to do is get sublimation ink, so that blowout that comes around your print sometimes, the last thing you want to do is get that on the surface of your heat press, because it can transfer to your designs in the future, and then you always have a problem from then on out. So I would definitely try to keep that sublimation ink off of those surfaces, and the way to do that is with the proper blowout paper. So a link to everything I've talked about below, and I hope this helps you decide on the protective paper or blowout paper that's right for your sublimation crafts. If you have any questions about anything we've covered, please feel free, drop down in the comment section, ask away. If you liked this video, if it helped you, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, head on over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We have videos like this every week and you don't want to miss any of those. So thank y'all so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.